Hi, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Good. I'm Melissa.
I'm Sean.
Nice to meet you, Sean.
Nice to meet you.
Did you find your way here okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was pretty easy.
Good.
Directions were pretty clear.
Good. I'm glad. Do you need some water or anything before we start?
No, I'm okay, thank you.
Okay, good. Um, have you been to therapy before?
No, I have not.
Okay, good. What brings you here today? Why
I
now?
want to work on items that I feel are an issue between me and my son, and that probably stem from the relationship of me and my father, and I don't want there to be those troubling times of insecurity and awkwardness.
Okay. Okay, that's a good place to start. Um, I need you to know that in here anything that you say is confidential. I will not share anything. I am an MSW intern, so I occasionally I go over things with my supervisor. I won't share any personal things that you disclose to me, unless for any reason you are threatening harm to yourself or others. I'll have to disclose that, of course. Or if I'm court ordered or subpoenaed from a judge to share our records. Otherwise, everything will stay confidential, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Have you heard of CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy before?
I have not.
All right, that's what we do here, and it's very it's structured, it's goal oriented, it's um, typically brief, like 6 to 8 treatments, 5 to 10 treatments, as opposed to like psychoanalytical where we go on for years and delve into your past. This is very much we're going to identify certain things that you would like to change within yourself and your behaviors and come up with some strategies together and some homework that you can do to try to work on changing those things. Does that sound like something you're interested in doing?
Yes.
Okay. So cognitive behavioral therapy believes that um, that something happens, you have a thought, and then you respond based on your emotion connected to that thought. Does that make sense the way I said that?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so let's say your son does something, and you have an automatic thought that happens like, oh, he's going to be bad, and then you have a trigger emotion connected to it, and then a behavior that happens. And so I think from what you said that's kind of what you want to work on.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to have a much softer response than a much quicker, aggravated response,
Okay.
and a more open, patient acceptance of the situation than a negative outlook or expect the worst of the situation.
Okay, that sounds very positive. And you mentioned, as opposed to the way your father treated you,
Yes.
right? So I think that's very important to recognize that, a lot of our automatic thoughts and emotions are programmed or instilled in us from our childhood. And although we won't really deal with that in this type of therapy, we do want to address and find those automatic thoughts, and then work to change them. So can you think of any example of something that you want to work on right now?
Um, I don't know how to put it into words or how to describe it. There's just things that I can see how I respond as my father would respond. And the biggest fear is that we never want to be like our parents,
Right.
but I see a lot of my dad in him or in me, and I see a lot of him in me as a kid. And I could see that it could be easy to be snappy or standoffish with things instead of trying to learn why he's feeling the way he does or thinks the way he does.
Right. Right. It sounds like you've thought a lot about this,
Yeah, I do a lot.
and it sounds like maybe there's a potential for you to recognize that maybe your father, maybe things were a little bit different than you thought as a child. right? Maybe you can have a little bit more compassion for your father in this experience also.
Yes, definitely. Because, your parents' biggest wish is that you have a kid just like you, and I think I do. So I can only imagine the chaos and turmoil I could have caused as a child, and how ready at hand you had to be ready for any situation, because a flip of the switch, and it's not just with him, it's with any kid. I mean, you find that there's a situation that could be great and everything going perfect, and then one little trigger and it's downhill real fast. And I don't want to respond to that situation. I want to bring it back to a better situation.
Okay, so with cognitive behavioral therapy, we want to really work on stuff. So I hear you telling me you've really gotten to a place where you're recognizing what's happening and you're understanding how you're feeling about everything, and you're ready to make a change, right? So can you think of one thing in the last 3 days, one event? Can you describe something that happened between you and your son? Or let me rephrase that. Can you explain what your son did and how you responded, and something that you would want to change?
Well, like when he wants something and I say no,
Okay.
and he wants to do something and I say no, and I'm trying to think of his best interest,
Okay.
and he can't understand that, and then he gets mad, and by getting mad or frustrated, then he gets very loud and boisterous with me, and very standoffish and very strong-willed and determined to get what he wants. And then my stubbornness clashes with that, and instead of being calm and trying to bring him down, I feed off of his anxiousness, and it makes me anxious, and then it's like two bees in a pot.
Okay, that's a good description. Okay.
Ready to sting and fight.
Okay. So what could you do different in a situation where he's getting loud and anxious and upset because you're trying to tell him not to do something? What could you do different?
Try to help him with what he is doing instead of stopping him. If it's not going to hurt anything, there's no reason why he shouldn't be allowed to do things, because that was one of the things as being a kid. When I was told no, if I tried to do it, I got in trouble, and there was consequences. And it wasn't always a bad thing. I don't want him to feel like he has any limitations. I want him to feel that life is limitless, and anything he wants and truly thinks he can do, I want him to know that I'm always there, and that he can go and fall, and I'm going to be there to pick him up and dust him off and tell him it's okay, and give him the courage and the strength to try again.
Sean, I think you're a wonderful father. It sounds, everything you just described, any kid would love to have a father that really feels that way. And I'm very glad to meet you. I appreciate you coming to therapy, and I really think that you're ready for the work, and that we can do this. I think that your son, what's his name?
Dylan Archer.
I think he's very lucky to have you. So our time is getting close. What we need to do is kind of set a couple goals, and then think about some homework that you can do between now and next session. So if you could come up with 2 goals that you would really like in the next 2 months to feel, that you've accomplished something, that coming to therapy was beneficial for you, what would they be?
More compassion and more patience.
Okay. So those are 2 good goals. Now we just have to kind of work on some behaviors, some practices that we can do to help you cultivate compassion and patience. So one thing that I know works really, really well is mindfulness, or kind of anchoring yourself in the present moment. When something's happening, instead of automatically responding, because that's what happens, right? He gets upset, he's doing something, you tell him, you give him a command or directive, and he fights back. He doesn't want you to control him, so he's like, and then you get upset and you fight back. if in that moment before you fight back, if you take a deep breath and think, how would I like to respond to this? Instead of the automatic response, because the automatic response is it's triggered by an automatic thought, which is I have to be in control, or I'm not going to let him do that, or any other fill in the blank automatic thought that you might have, with an emotion, which is anger, right? Emotion, oh, he's defying me, I'm going to be upset about it. But if you stop yourself, if you stop that automatic response and just take a deep breath and say, how would I like to respond? You give yourself a chance to make up your mind and say, oh, I would like to help him with this instead. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So do you think we could just have a homework assignment where at least once a day you catch yourself before you respond emotionally to something, you take a deep breath and say, how would I like to respond?
Yes. I think that would be best for all parties involved.
Okay. I think that's a good start.
Wonderful.
Good. All right, so does this time work for you? Would you like to come back at the same time next week?
Sure.
Okay.
It's a good time.
Okay. And are you using your insurance? Is that how you're...
No, I'm actually paying out of pocket. I can't afford insurance.
Okay. Okay.
So.
Well, if you talk with the receptionist on the way out, I think that she can settle up the bill for you, okay?
Okay, thank you.
It was very nice to meet you,
You
Sean.
too. I look forward to our next meeting.
Me too. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.